What's going on, beautiful people? Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you. I appreciate your appreciation. We're gonna have to do these disclaimers from now on these videos. I don't know why, but I think we're just gonna have to do them. So, disclaimer: I do not endorse the use of any psychoactive substances, legal or illegal. This video is made for educational, entertainment, and reducing self-harm purposes. I don't know, hopefully I said that right. Anyway, so what I want to tell you guys about here is my experience. This is just my experience of the difference between psilocybin mushrooms and LSD, also known as acid, which is just a disgusting term, but it's just fun to throw around. Done acid, bro? I dropped 3 tabs of acid, bro. That's hardcore, dude. That's hardcore. So, difference between LSD and mushrooms, I will give you my subjective feeling of it, because this is something you're gonna see a lot of different opinions on the difference between mushrooms and LSD, because I think it really is subjective. I think ultimately, because they act on the same serotonin receptors, they get picked up in the same way, they have a similar molecular structure. Ultimately, you're getting this similar effects overall, but there are subtle differences. And individuals report different subtle differences while under the influence of LSD or psilocybin mushrooms. So I will tell you actually first let's go with the objective difference between them, and then we'll go with the subjective difference between them. Objectively, LSD lasts twice as long in your system. I read something, the way the LSD molecule gets picked up, it stays in your serotonin receptors longer than psilocybin, than psilocin. Psilocybin gets broken into psilocin. I don't know the science, I don't give a fuck. But it stays twice as long in your system. So usually an LSD trip will last you between 8 to 12 hours, roughly speaking. So the whole day pretty much. If you're gonna get up and trip at 9 a.m., pretty much till 9 p.m., the whole day. 8 to 12 hours, and psilocybin is usually between 3 and 5. That's about as far as objective difference goes. Well, the molecular structure as well is different, but very similar. And your serotonin, essentially what's going on is your serotonin receptors pick up the molecule, the psilocin, in the case of psilocybin, gets broken in your gut, gets into psilocin, or picks up the LSD, which has a molecular structure. Very similar, psilocin, LSD, very similar, right? And they act on the serotonin receptor. Serotonin receptors think they're picking up serotonin. They're thinking, I'm going on my usual hike every day. It's in a beautiful morning day. I'm going on a hike. Your serotonin receptors are like chilling, going on a hike in your body. Oh, there is my love. There is my serotonin. Come here, serotonin. Let me hug you. And then what it really is psilocin and LSD are disguised as serotonin. Like they're pretending, they're pretenders. They're jokers, right? They're jokers. I think that's why you get fucking giggles. The first thing that happens on a trip, you start to giggle. They're jokers. So they disguise as serotonin, right? And then like the serotonin receptors, they get tricked, right? They pick up, okay? Because they're seductive. These fucking LSD and psilocin, they're seductive. They pick them up. Next thing you know, what the fuck is going on in the universe? So that's what happens. That's as far as objective difference. There's a slight difference in the molecular structure of LSD and psilocin, but they're similar, and they get picked up by serotonin receptors thinking it's serotonin. So that's as far as the objective difference. Now, the subjective difference. So I'll talk from personal experience. When I'm on mushrooms, and I've started dabbling with mushrooms in the beginning, and then I stopped and I started doing LSD because it's more convenient and lasts longer. And I microdose it as well. And I prefer microdosing LSD because it lasts longer, right? Then I went back to psilocybin. I wanted to see, okay, now is there a difference? And there is, actually. From my subjective experience, there is. Mushrooms, everything feels more organic. I don't know how else to describe it. Everything feels more organic. The trees, and you just look at them and they're alive, man. They're alive. They're breathing, and there is this consciousness. There is a spirit to everything with mushrooms. Everything has a spirit. Everything has a spirit with mushrooms. It's the same with LSD, but there is a little bit of a mechanical feeling to everything. A little bit of, see, here's the interesting thing. When I'm on mushrooms, the thought stream that I pick up on is more of, how can I put this? More of creation type thoughts. Whereas the thoughts I pick up on LSD is more like simulation theory type, program, code. It's a slight subtle difference, right? Slight subtle difference. So on mushrooms, everything just feels organic. It feels like real, but at the same time dreamy. It's really weird. It feels dreamy but real and organic. And I feel there is something watching over me, a creation, a creator, entities, spirits. Everything just becomes more spiritual. I would say psilocybin mushrooms is more of a spiritual experience. You start to feel the presence of spirits all around you, and I think you start to feel the presence of the three spirits. Everything just has an extra spiritual element to it than if I was on LSD. On LSD, same thing. Like, believe me, it's still got that spiritual element to it. But there's the extra spiritual element to everything, that everything has a spirit and consciousness when I am, subjective experience, on psilocybin mushrooms. The other thing that I experienced on psilocybin mushrooms that's different from LSD is things tend to be like more chaotic for me. When I'm on mushrooms, it's chaos. It is chaos. It's just just one emotion after the next. It's like a roller coaster. Boom, 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 boom. It's just one emotion. Suddenly I'm crying, and then fucking the next moment I'm laughing, and the next moment I'm sad, and the next moment I'm so happy and ecstatic, and suddenly I'm speaking, about the purpose of life. Next thing you know, I'm describing how funny it is that everybody has assholes. It's a chaos, chaos, chaos. Chaotic thoughts, chaotic emotions. It's a roller coaster, man. Boom, 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 boom. With LSD, my roller coaster, mind you, is still a roller coaster, but it's more like not so steep. It's more like this. Boom, 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 boom. It's still a roller coaster, mind you, right? I do find myself on LSD also changing my emotions, but they're not as drastic as mushrooms for me. With mushrooms, it's like, pew, pew, like it's very steep, very steep. So the roller coaster, it's like steep, steep, steep. With mushrooms, it's still a roller coaster. Where LSD, roller coaster, but it's like this. It's not, the peaks and the valleys are not as steep, right? So it's like this, more like a sine wave, more like a steady state sine wave function, right? So the chaos tends to be less with LSD. There tends to be more control. It tends to be more controlled, more deliberate. There seems to be a deliberate element to it, which is why to me everything feels a bit more mechanical. Because even the way I experience emotions, there's just like a mechanical feeling to them. It's like happiness lasts for a little while, then different emotion. With mushrooms, happiness for 2 seconds, crying for 2 seconds. Happiness for 5 seconds, laughter, crying for like 5 seconds. It's like, it's crazy for me. It's just this, that's how it affects me anyway, right? With mushrooms, I tend to feel love more for all of creation and all of beings. I always cry on mushrooms. I always cry, like tears of love and compassion. Doesn't always happen on LSD for me. LSD, I'm usually very joyful, like a little kid who's playing, right? Like a little kid who's playing. With mushrooms, I just tend to get very compassionate. I think it's more feminine. I feel more in my feminine element with mushrooms. With LSD, I'm just a fucking kid who's having fun. Again, more mechanical. You're playing, you're having fun. With mushrooms, I just feel like love, insane amounts of love, insane amounts of compassion. I start crying for love and compassion, and I just want to, like anybody that's there, I want to hug them and kiss them, and it's just like I'm filled with this intense love. LSD, I'm full of that love. It's positive. It's more of a joy. It's more of a happiness. It's more of a let's go. Let's jump up and down and stuff like that. So that's for me, that's the subjective difference that I see in my experience of both molecules. I love both of them. I still, experiment with both of them. I prefer LSD for microdosing because I'm trying to be productive. I don't want to be, I'm trying to be more productive. I need things to be a little less chaotic, a little bit more mechanical. I'm trying to be productive, make videos, write my book, and it lasts me the whole day. So I prefer it for microdosing. For big trips, insights, spiritual awakening, both will do fine. I personally prefer psilocybin mushrooms for that. Now, if you're someone who has never tripped, first of all, go and do your own research. I take no responsibility for anything, okay? I'm just sharing my experiences. I'm trying to spread some awareness, right? You do your research, make sure you test your substances, make sure you're in the right setting, you're in the right mindset, and with the right people, okay? So if you're someone who is looking to do the first trip and you're wondering, should I start with psilocybin or should I start with LSD? Recognize something. The dose of what you do is going to be more important than the substance itself. That how much LSD are you going to do or how much psilocybin you're going to do for your first trip is much more important than which substance you choose. It's dose is all it's what's going to make the trip, right? If you do 5 grams of mushrooms, it's a whole different experience than 2 grams of mushrooms. Whole different experience. Just whole different experience. If you're gonna drop half a tab of LSD versus a tab versus 2 tabs, each experience is gonna be different. Okay? So if you're someone who's for first timer, start with a low dose, either or. If you're having, thoughts, which one you wanna start? Start with a low dose. My own personal little recommendation, and this is just my own personal recommendation, if you're first tripping, start with a low dose of LSD, maybe like a fourth of a tab, a third of a tab, and make sure you do everything properly. Make sure you test it. Make sure go and look up Psych Substance Adam's videos on testing your substances, right? And make sure you're in the right you're in the right setting, you're with the right people, and you'll get yourself in a good headspace. I got some videos on that. Go on my playlist, psychedelic playlist. I would probably, I started off with psilocybin mushrooms, but if I was to go back and say now, what would I start? I'd probably start with a little bit of LSD, a fourth or a third of a tab. Okay, just because, again, it's my subjective experience. It could be totally off here. There tends to be less of chaos to it. It tends to be, and it's your first time, you're maybe a little nervous about this experience. Maybe I would do like a low dose of LSD, like a third of a tab, fourth of a tab or something, and see how it is. And then as you sort of get accustomed with that, then maybe go and increase the dose little by little, right? And if you're looking, I think, from my point of view, if you're looking for like the deepest level of spiritual experience, the deepest level, because you'll go deep on both, psilocybin mushrooms, preferably like a high dose once you're accustomed to it by yourself, either in silent darkness, like Terence McKenna would say, or somewhere you feel comfortable, safe, in the woods, in nature, whatever. Conclusion, moral of the story, objective difference, it's just the duration of it. The duration of LSD, the duration of psilocybin, LSD twice as long, 8 to 12 hours, psilocybin 3 to 5 hours, okay? And they have a bit of a different molecular structure, but very similar that your serotonin picks it up. That's the objective difference. Subjective difference, I just explained it to you guys, what I think the subjective difference for me between the two of them is. Which one do I prefer now? For microdosing LSD, for tripping, psilocybin mushrooms. Tripping meaning that's the whole day, you're tripping, you're going higher doses, you're trying to dig into your soul, unreveal who you are, have a deep spiritual experience. For me, I prefer psilocybin mushroom. For a first timer, doesn't matter so much. Just start with a low dose. Honestly, in the first timer, doesn't matter so much. Best of luck. Do your own research. I will put the disclaimer again. I don't endorse the use of any psychoactive substances, legal or illegal. This video is made for entertainment purposes and educational and awareness purposes, right? So we put that out there. Do your own research and be responsible and be good. And as always, don't forget to subscribe or you're gonna sleep with the fishes.